And this afternoon, the Supreme Court, in a landmark ruling, has actually declared Parliament's Standing Order 18 Clause 3 as unconstitutional. This ruling actually implies that the first Deputy Speaker, Joseph Osei, retains his original voting rights as Member of Parliament. This also validates the approval of the 2022 budget, which was done by a one-sided majority in December last year. Opinions are actually divided over the propriety otherwise of the Bekwai MP's interpretation of the constitutional provision, leading to fisticuffs which we witnessed in the chamber when he attempted to vote on the subject of the controversial electronic transaction levy. Court correspondent Joseph Akable has been monitoring proceedings from the Supreme Court today and comes through with this report.
Two main issues engage the attention of the judges. The first had to do with whether or not the Deputy Speaker can be counted as part of quorum formation for parliamentary decision making. The court answered that question yes, indicating that the Deputy Speaker can be counted when a quorum is to be formed for parliamentary decision making. The second issue has to do with whether or not the Deputy Speaker can vote in terms of a decision-making process in Parliament. The court said that whether presiding or not, he retains his right to vote. Therefore, the court concluded that the approval of the 2022 budget on November 30, 2021 is valid. The Attorney General Godfrey Adame says he expects Parliament to abide by this decision, and the chaotic scenes that marred the parliamentary procedure will be a thing of the past.
The reason by the Supreme Court clearly is sound, is in accord with the practice in other jurisdictions around the world, and also clearly borne out by the letter and spirit of relevant provisions of the Constitution.
This applies to forming of quorum for business as well?
Yes, because indeed the Constitution itself was quite clear. Whenever it seeks to exclude a member presiding, it says so clearly. So you see that for the commencement of business, ordinary business in Parliament, it says with the exception of the person presiding. But such exception is not made in the case of forum for decision making. So when it comes to forum for decision making, the member presiding, if he's a member of Parliament, clearly will be included in the record of the quorum.
In terms of subsequent parliamentary business, I mean, as Minister for Justice, you expect that this will resolve the matter and avoid the scenes that we saw when the Deputy Speaker attempted to vote previously?
Oh, yeah, definitely, yes. I mean, those scenes clearly were needless and were really inspired by mischief, because all those mischief makers should have known that the practice in other jurisdictions, whenever the person presiding is a member of Parliament, that person is not precluded from exercising his right to vote, exists. So I think those scenes of Parliament were really unwarranted, and we really hope that they will not be repeated again. The Supreme Court has brought clarity on the matter, and it should guide the nation going forward.
Private legal practitioner Justice Abdullahi, who filed this case, has been reacting as well.
There are only two outcomes. It's not like a football game where there will be a draw. There will either be a win or a lose. But in this case, I think there's actually no one lost, because I think the Constitution wins, the people of Ghana win, and this is the best decision that I think we should have had. It puts clarity on the law, but despite the fact that some of the reliefs that I was seeking were not obtained, but there's a far-reaching decision that has been made by the Supreme Court today, to the extent of striking out portions of the standing orders, and this is very good for all of us. It puts clarity on the rules of Parliament, and indeed it makes all of us citizens. And I think I would probably use this opportunity to invite all of us to be participants in the democratic credentials of this country. We all have to play our roles to ensure that we get the best outcomes of our constitutions. This is just one of the things that we'll be doing going forward to ensure that the difficult decisions in bringing the sort of cases to the Supreme Court for clarity to be put on some of the issues that borders on sometimes illegality are all put to the past.
It is not clear whether government will send the e-levy bill to Parliament anytime soon, but it has been one issue that has been thorny in the last couple of months. For JoyNews from the Supreme Court, my name is Joseph Akable.
Well, so that's what transpired all throughout the day when Akable was in court monitoring all of the proceedings. But we need to give you some highlights of the decision that's coming through from the Supreme Court as we speak. Here's the implication. We know that the matters that were before the court was for the interpretation of the 1992 Constitution, Article 102, which you have on your screens as we speak, indicating that a quorum of Parliament, apart from the person presiding, shall be 1/3 of all the members of Parliament. And you recall that late last year, that became a subject of controversy when the first Deputy Speaker decided to add himself to the number of MPs in the chamber and deciding on the approval of the 2022 budget. But there's also another issue about Article 102, 104, which you should have on your screens now, indicating the procedure of voting. What you have now should be Article 104, actually, and it talks about the fact that except as otherwise provided in this constitution, matters in Parliament shall be determined by the votes of the majority of members present and voting with at least half of all the members of Parliament present. Point 2 talks about the Speaker, which obviously the Speaker of Parliament we know is Alban Bagman. He shall have neither an original nor casting vote. And it goes without saying that the Speaker of Parliament is not a member of Parliament. So that explains why that provision is there. But point 3 is where all of the controversy is stemming from, which actually translates into the standing orders, which we will be bringing to you shortly. But look at Article 104, Clause 3. It talks about the fact that where the votes on any motion are equal, it shall be taken to be actually lost. But that's not where the whole issue is. What we need to bring to your attention is what's contained in Article 104, which talks about the first Deputy Speaker. We'll be breaking all of that down for you shortly, but you need to stay with us because we also need to bring you the standing orders which the Supreme Court is today striking out. So we can bring you what the standing order also says about what should happen anytime there should be a vote in Parliament. So we'll bring you the standing orders, which you need to be very much aware of. The standing orders now, 1081. No question for decision in the House shall be proposed for determination unless there are present in the House not less than one half of all members of the House, except otherwise provided in the Constitution. The question proposed shall be determined by the majority of the members present. And all of this is being held from Article 104. But here's what the point is. Mr. Speaker, as we know, who is Alban Bagman, will neither have an original nor casting vote. And if upon any question before the House, the votes equally divided, which means 50-50, the question shall be taken to be lost. So that's the implication number 2 with the standing orders 1093, which is being struck out by the court. But here's where the decision is. A Deputy Speaker or any other member presiding shall not retain his original vote while presiding. And that is exactly what the Supreme Court are now today indicating, that portions of that in the standing orders is unconstitutional, which means that obviously that would not stand. So what's the implication of all of this, and what's the reaction of minority to this? In fact, the minority has been speaking on the matter already. The minority in Parliament has actually criticized the ruling, adding that it will resist any attempt actually to pass the electronic transaction levy. Haruna Idrisu is the leader of minority in Parliament.
Attention has just been drawn to a ruling of the Supreme Court on the matter as to whether a person presiding as Speaker, consistent with Article 102 of the 1992 Constitution, which provides for the quorum, and Article 104, can exercise a vote whilst presiding. Our attention has been drawn to a very disappointing ruling of the Supreme Court of Ghana, which more or less amounts to a judicial interference in time-tested parliamentary practice and established conventions everywhere in the world, in civilized democracies, including the United Kingdom. The presiding officer's vote is discounted. So it's not for nothing that Article 102 provides that a person presiding shall have no original nor casting vote. The Supreme Court, to put it aptly, this ruling is judicial support for e-levy, nothing more. judicial support for e-levy for a struggling economy.
Well, so there you have it. Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu addressing the press a while ago after that landmark ruling came from the Supreme Court. You heard from Joseph Akable. But what is the implication of this, and what do some legal brains think about this? Fortunate to have Boku Central Member of Parliament Mahama Ayariga joining us live via Zoom. He is also a lawyer himself, also a member of the Constitutional and Legal as well as Parliamentary Affairs Committee of Parliament. Thank you, sir, for joining us. And also private legal practitioner, lawyer Bobby Bunsen. Let me start off with you, Honorable Ayariga. What's your impression really of the decision by the Supreme Court to allow First Deputy Speakers to have, first of all, their original voting rights and then have the ability to form a quorum?
Well, I don't know. Thank you very much for the opportunity to join you in this discussion, but I don't know the extent to which the Supreme Court would have benefited from arguments that position itself against first or second deputy speaker voting when they are presiding, because I know that Parliament did not enter appearance or even file arguments to assist the Supreme Court, and I think that that might be a major setback in terms of the ruling of the Supreme Court, in that it would have been better if Parliament had joined and then, assisted with arguments why we should have an arrangement in our Parliament that disenable the person presiding from voting. That's the first issue that I would
How
say.
about claims that at least Parliament was not a party to this matter, and this was much more a case of interpretation of the Supreme Court?
But it is an interpretation of the rules of Parliament, the proceedings in Parliament, how Parliament conducts its business. And so if we had Parliament participating, I think that that should have helped. But be that as it may, the court has given its ruling. We don't have the benefit of the reasoning that informed the ruling. Usually for constitutional law experts, that is what you wait and read to understand how the court came to the conclusion that it came to. As for just reading the black letter law and saying that 104 just mentions speaker, and so it couldn't apply to a deputy speaker, first or second, and it doesn't relate to the person presiding, is something that I believe they should have provided some clarity to the whole idea that the person presiding at any given time becomes the speaker. And there are different circumstances when somebody is speaker. I mean, we have a situation where the speaker is out of the jurisdiction, and it is announced to Parliament that the speaker is out of the jurisdiction, and then the first deputy speaker assumes the position of the speaker. And this is also announced to the House. That situation might be different from when the speaker is sitting in his office and says, first deputy, you can preside, and then, I can come in.
It appears we're having some challenges to his connection there. We'll try and rectify the lines and get an understanding from the Honorable Mahama Ayariga. Lawyer Bobby Bunsen is also with us. So here we are. This is a matter of judicial review. Initially, we knew that the Supreme Court was going to give an interpretation to this. It would definitely have implications going forward in how a lot of activities are carried out in Parliament. But knowing that there's the concept of separation of powers, how is this going to play out for you, and what's your prediction going forward in the coming days in Parliament?
Thank you for having me. I was looking at, okay, as the standing rules exist, whether or not the actions or what was sent to the Supreme Court to be interpreted would the unconstitutionality aspect of the standing rules, so that before this decision of the Supreme Court had been given, will it have retrospective effect? Like Honorable Ayariga said, I have not had the benefit of seeing the reasoning behind or that underlined the decision of the Supreme Court. But I would want to see how they are going to marry the two scenarios. And so at the time that the decision or the first Deputy Speaker decided to participate in voting, the standing rules were there. Whether it was interpreted at that time to mean that, okay, if we do not declare the standing rules a nullity, are they valid? Are they enforceable? If they are valid and enforceable, will it deny the first Deputy Speaker the right to vote or form the quorum for the purposes of a decision making? So because whether the decision of the Supreme Court would have retrospective effect to mean that everything or whatever decision that has been done with the first Deputy Speaker is deemed valid, and whether going forward what ought to be done. Remember, Parliament is a master of its own rules. Will Parliament be able to sit and say, okay, this is what the Supreme Court has said. They have not prohibited us from amending the standing orders to bring clarity and to make it in compliance with the Constitution as they have directed. And so I want to see how Parliament will decide if they choose to amend the standing orders to bring it in line with the interpretation given by the Supreme Court, and whether or not the decision of the Supreme Court will be interpreted and applied to have retrospective effect to the extent that whatever was done by the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament would be deemed to have also been unconstitutional or constitutional. So once we all have the benefit of the reasoning behind the decision by the Supreme Court, perhaps we'll be better placed to...
Fortunately, the Honorable Mama Yarga is still with us. So let's find out from him, because he's the Member of Parliament, obviously on the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee as well. For you, Honorable Yarga, what do you see as the way forward in Parliament, knowing that Parliament is a master of its own rules? Are you likely to go ahead and implement what it is that the Supreme Court is ruling on right now?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Okay, yes. So I was saying that there's a difference between when the first Deputy Speaker is just a first Deputy Speaker in the presence of the Speaker. But there's also a difference when the first Deputy Speaker is acting as the Speaker when the Speaker is out of the jurisdiction. Because when the Speaker is out of the jurisdiction and the first Deputy Speaker is presiding, he, in essence, is the Speaker. So that's why I'm saying that we have to wait and listen to the reasoning of the court. I share the position that if the language of the Constitution is clear and the standing orders have provisions that are contrary to the express provisions of the Constitution, of course, the Supreme Court will declare the standing orders null and void. The standing orders do not supersede the Constitution, and the principle that Parliament is master of its own rules doesn't mean that when there are express provisions in the Constitution, it doesn't mean that when there are express provisions in the Constitution, you can go and then pass standing orders.
And we seem to be having some challenges there. So that's the explanation we're getting from Honorable Mahama Yarga. For you, Lawyer Bobby Bansing, he says there's a difference when the Speaker is not in the jurisdiction and when the Speaker is also around. There are two issues at stake here. Looking at the ruling that we're having from the Supreme Court, really, does it really change anything? That's the question there.
Well, like I said, it depends on... Yes, of course, the Supreme Court decision is law, and it will bind Parliament going forward. So yes, it will change. It will change a lot of things. But whether or not it will affect what has been done in the past, it's what I'm yet to see, because we do not have the benefit of the full reasoning. Be that as it may, like I said, reading the standing orders as it was then, together with the Constitution. I thought the two could be read together, and I did not see any constitutionality with it, with the two of them being interpreted and applied together. And I sided with the position that said that the first deputy speaker, once he is presiding, would have all the rights and liabilities, as it were, of the speaker, and so will not be able to constitute a quorum. But the Supreme Court has delivered its decision, declaring the standing orders, those provisions, as unconstitutional. It will definitely change how Parliament conducts its affairs going forward, unless Parliament, like we say, we keep saying, master of its own rules, decide to amend the standing orders to bring some clarity into the issue, and then make sure that it's aligned with the provision, the ruling by the Supreme Court, and we'll see how that pans out.
Lawyer Bobby Benson, I'm grateful. Let's take you now to Parliament, where my colleague Parker Wilson is monitoring events for us live, and he joins me now. Parker, I can imagine the mood in Parliament now, mixed reactions. Obviously, the majority side will be elated about this because this will add to their numbers. Tell us more about the indications we're getting, not just from the minority, but also the man at the center of this, Joseph Osei himself.
So, Blessed, I'm making the point that the majority in the House is elated and are gloating over the decision by the apex courts. Now, their position is that the judgment delivered by the Supreme Court affirms the position of the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Joseph Osei, and he himself described the judgment as refreshing, as something that he was expecting, because he has always maintained as a lawyer that he never erred when he indicated to the House that as a member of Parliament representing the people of Bekwai, he has every opportunity and has every right, legal right, to partake in any voting decision on the floor of the House, whether or not he is presiding over sittings. And so what the Supreme Court judges have done is to bring finality and clarity to an issue that became a subject of controversy in the chamber. And he is expecting his colleagues on the other side, particularly the minority, to accept the decision and work together for the interest of the nation. He disagreed with the position by the minority leader that what the Supreme Court has done is an interference of parliamentary procedures, but rather it is something that will further deepen parliamentary practice. So that has been the position of Joseph Osei, Member of Parliament for Bekwai, and of course, the first Deputy Speaker of the House. But I must say that the minority is super upset. They are incensed over the ruling and have accused the judges of intellectual dishonesty. They believe this is a judicial support for the approval of the e-levy, and they will resist the e-levy at any point in time when it is tabled before the House for consideration. I must say that a Member of Parliament for Ningo Prampram, being a member of the minority caucus, has served notice that for him, he will ensure that they protect parliamentary practice. What he believes is the judgment is actually flies in the face of parliamentary practice. And for him, on any given day, he will protect the democracy of this country by resisting any attempt by the first Deputy Speaker or the second Deputy Speaker to partake in the vote. But I must say that his colleague on the other side, Eugene Boakye-Nchi, has dared the minority to try to resist this position, because if they do, they will equally resist. They want the minority to accept the ruling and work together. So going forward, it'll be quite interesting in the chamber, because the minority has served notice that they will not comply. Parliament is a master of its own laws and its own ruling, and that the Supreme Court cannot tell them what they have to do. The majority on the other side is also saying that the Supreme Court has been given the mandate to interpret the Constitution, and they have interpreted the Constitution to the best interest of this nation. So going forward, it'll be quite interesting in the chamber. But there is another school of thought that perhaps the Parliament should not consider appointing second or deputy speakers of the House outside Parliament. If you appoint deputy speakers of the House who are outside Parliament, we won't have this challenge, because you cannot be a referee in your own a football match. That is how the minority simplify this judgment. So they are clear in their minds that this particular ruling does not augur well for parliamentary practice, and they will resist it.
Parker, break this down for us. What would this mean, first of all, for the numbers in Parliament? And we do know that the first Deputy Speaker himself has been commenting on this matter, indicating that this would mean victory for democracy. How about that?
Well, he said that this will mean the victory for democracy, and basically because now there is finality, there is clarity on this matter as to whether or not if you are a member of parliament and presiding, you are prevented or precluded from partaking in a vote in the chamber. And so it is not just for him, but for any other member of parliament who presides during sitting. And he indicated to us that it wouldn't be the process where he has to get up from the seat and make way for the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament to come and chair before he can cast his vote. Whilst on the seat, he can indicate to the House that I am voting A or I am voting B. And so that wouldn't be an issue at all. He will still be presiding and indicate to members of the House that because he agrees with this decision, he is voting in this direction. And so this is a victory for democracy. He is clear in his mind that what the Supreme Court has done does not fly in the face of the standing orders. It is not an error, it is not dishonesty, but rather something that would go a long way to assist Parliament work together. But the minority has a different view. Tonight or this afternoon, they have served notice that any attempt by the first Deputy Speaker or the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament to partake in any vote, because the argument has been that if you are presiding over sitting, you are not supposed to debate as a speaker. And so if you don't debate, how then do you partake in a vote that is happening in the chamber when you did not partake in that decision making? Besides, when a call for division is done, it is basically because the speaker wants to have the clarity of the yes vote or the no vote is the reason the division is called. And so if you did not vote via voice vote, why then do you include yourself or partake in any decision when there's a division or a head count? That has been the contention of the minority in this. And for the Supreme Court, the minority believes that it was a misinterpretation of Article 102, which talks about a member of parliament can be counted to form a quorum even when he is presiding. And then again, a deputy speaker or deputy speakers can equally vote. The minority believes that the law has been twisted to suit the NPP and their members in the chamber. So they are obviously going to oppose to any actions from the majority side in this regard.
Wilson joining us live from Parliament and giving us the very latest on this that we're keeping our eyes on, the Supreme Court ruling and allowing the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament now to have his original casting votes. Parker, thank you. But one more issue we're also on the lookout for you here on the JoyNews channel is about Ukraine and the tension building up there. Some more Ghanaian students are reportedly trapped in the Ukrainian city of Sumy, which has become the hotspot in the wake of escalation tension between Russia and Ukraine. According to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it indicates that so far only 70% of Ghanaian students in Sumy have commenced their journey to the western borders and cities in Ukraine for onward transfers to neighboring countries. So far, only 181 evacuees have arrived here in the country. And you may want to see excerpts of the statement that was released by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration earlier, just yesterday, indicating and giving a breakdown of all of the issues that are unfolding. I'll just bring you excerpts of that. It reads that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration has so far received 88 Ghanaian students from Romania, Hungary and Poland as part of the evacuation of Ghanaian nationals from Ukraine. This brings the total number of evacuees to 181. That's 181, and as of 12 p.m. March 8, 2022. The ministry has, however, noted with grave concern the refusal of some Ghanaian students to show up at the airport after they have expressed their willingness to be evacuated. This resulted in the government purchasing air tickets which remain unused, as well as paying for COVID-19 tests for persons with no intention of traveling. The government is therefore entreating only Ghanaians who are willing to be evacuated to confirm their participation so as to avoid the dissipation of scarce public resource. And those are excerpts of the statement that we have from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration. What a good time to be speaking to the ranking on Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee, the Honourable Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, also MP for Northern. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on The Pulse.
Always a pleasure. Good to see you.
It's good to see you. Let's start off from the journey you made. Some call it perilous, but I don't know if that's the best description for that. We're all surprised when we saw on your social media accounts that you've decided to take a step to go to the front lines to Romania and to visit some of the students, Ghanaian students who were out there stranded. What necessitated that move, the decision to go out there and to see things for yourself?
Well, thank you very much. Good afternoon to you and to all our distinguished viewers. We share a common humanity, don't we? When fellow human beings are in distress, if there's any way you can lend a hand of support, it's a natural instinct to do that. More so, these are our fellow citizens, our young compatriots who were in harm's way. They had gone through such an ordeal, a very hellish experience to cross the borders amidst racism and all kinds of human rights violations. We were receiving reports. Now, as ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee, my duty, as is the practice of parliaments all over the world, is to carry out oversight, particularly matters relating to what the Foreign Ministry is doing, its missions, its activities, its operations. The Foreign Ministry was at the forefront. We were receiving reports from the Foreign Ministry as to how the evacuation was going on and all of that. As ranking member, if there is an opportunity to get to the field, to take it upon yourself to go see for yourself at first hand what the situation is, and if that visit will also help your fellow citizens who you serve, who are your employers, why not? And so I decided that let me just embark on this journey, particularly as no official from Ghana had so far, as at the time I was leaving, gone to meet the students and to see for themselves what they were going through.
And that's where there was a bit of controversy as to whether or not you were sponsored by the government of Ghana to go there and to see firsthand what was happening. Were you sponsored by government to travel?
No, I wasn't sponsored by government. I used personal resources because I took the decision very quickly, and though I would have been entitled for support from Parliament, from the legislative arm, of government, I thought that by the time you submit a memo and go through the processes, it will take a lot of time. This was an emergency, and so I used personal resources to get there. I am glad that I was able to go. And you see, we need to encourage this practice. I mean, some of the legislators I have followed keenly who have inspired my work, somebody like Senator John McCain, he will always get to the front lines. He as chair of the Armed Services Committee of Parliament, he would not only be armchair and wait for reports. He will get to the field and see what is going on. He was quite celebrated for that. He will go to Iraq, he will go to Afghanistan, talk to the troops directly, and see if what the troops are going through, what is happening on the ground, tallies, it's really in sync with what they are receiving from the executive. So I am glad I was able to go, and it was really a memorable visit. The students were elated to see me, absolutely excited, and we formed a strong bond now. I hosted them to lunch because they were depending on packed lunch from volunteers,
right.
you know.
And you can see some of the pictures on the screens right now.
And I gave them a listening ear to hear them out. And that's also therapeutic, you know, to get to, you know, narrate your ordeal, what you've gone through, and then what you expect from those in charge, from your national leaders, how you would want to be evacuated. And a lot of them were also thinking about what happens to their course, their academic pursuits. They were there largely studying medicine. More than 90% of them are medical students.
Right.
Some had only 3 months to graduate. Can you believe that? Yeah. Only 3 months. Final year, 6th year, only 3 months to graduate. Some have done 5 years, 4 years. The greater part of their academic responsibility has been met. And then suddenly there is a war and they don't know what the future holds. So it's been a great visit. I have made a number of recommendations.
And we'll get into the recommendations shortly, but one of the concerns as well has got to do with the initial reports that you placed out there even before going to Romania. There were reports indicating that some students were attacked. You said that on authority. The Foreign Affairs Minister came out then to indicate that that's not an accurate report. Have you reflected over these comments, and what facts do you gather about this?
As I said earlier, it is important as ranking member and as members of parliament who are carrying out oversight over particular sectors to be hands-on and to engage directly with persons affected. So throughout this crisis, I have never made up any story. I have never put out anything that I have not verified or I have not heard from the key actors responsible. When I put out that narrative about a train station attack, and there were some Ghanaian students in the train when the attack took place, it came from the students themselves. I mean, it was the NUC's president who I've kept very close communication with, NUC's Ukraine president, Mr. Philip Bobie-Ansan, who's been so phenomenal and inspirational. I mean, I have commended him greatly. Look, when we come to tell the story about these evacuations, many people focus on only the final leg of the evacuation from the bordering countries, neighboring countries to Ghana. That is the easiest part. The more difficult part of the evacuation was getting out of harm's way, navigating your way when there are bombs, there are gunshots, you know, all kinds of, you know, bombardments. Finding your way out, particularly those who were in Sumy, those who were in Kharkiv, finding their way out to the borders. And NUC's Ukraine, and then to some extent you must commend Pentecost International. Look, NUC's Ukraine used their own resources, you know, about $3,000 in their account to pay bus drivers to transport them, ferry them across cities onto the borders with Romania, Czech, Slovakia, Moldova, Hungary, Poland, you know, and then government took it up from there. So this report about the train attack came from the NUC's president, and he made clear that no Ghanaian student, you know, had suffered any injuries.
But the attack happened.
But the attack happened.
And that you have confirmed.
Yes, and I've confirmed. He insists that it happened. He did not mislead me. So I don't know where the foreign minister checked from, because she didn't call me. I'm not aware that she's also checked from the students. But I mean, I do not think that, look, in the midst of this major humanitarian crisis, I mean, we are witnessing what we haven't seen in our lifetime. The last time something like this happened in Europe probably was in 1935. So I want us to focus on the bigger issues of the safety of our nationals and how we bring them to safety. But I would never, you know, mislead the Ghanaian people. Look, parents are already under so much pressure. They are burdened. There is a lot of anxiety. They are wondering, you know, they are traumatized. They are not in a good place. So all of us in leadership must try to ease their burden and not, as it were, you know, further inflame or if you like, muddy the waters.
I was going to take your thoughts. Yes, I was going to take your thoughts on the evacuation process, and you can have that on your screens now. The figures as we have them. In fact, the total number of persons resident in Ukraine itself, as you see the numbers on your screen now, the numbers are contained in the press release by the Foreign Affairs Minister, unconfirmed figures now, but we are estimating that about 1,200 persons, mostly students, 945 of them are actually students, and a significant number of these students have made their way into neighboring countries, Romania and other, the countries, Belarus and some of these areas, and that's the number we're talking about, 1,200, and I wanted to take your thoughts on that. 181 of them are back home now. What's your impression about government's evacuation plan?
I have already said that government's shift in position is one that is commendable. You will recall that the initial statement from the Foreign Ministry was that our students should look out for safe havens, shelters, and go into hiding. I criticized that position. I thought that it was not adequate, it was not helpful, and that it almost amounted to us shaking our responsibility to these students as national leaders, and that government should be more proactive. A few days after there was a shift in position, government announced that it will evacuate. I commended government for that decision. I think that so far, from what I have gone to see, the evacuation has been largely successful when you consider the fact that the students are airlifted from these neighboring countries. That portion has been largely successful. Where I have had major challenges is how the students get to cross the border. I do not think that we made adequate arrangements with border officials. So if you listen to the students, the ordeal they went through, they say that other nationals who have had their governments contact border officials. For example, they cite the Indians. The Indians were always given priority because there had been some diplomatic engagement with the Indian government and the Ukrainian government, which then translated into border officials knowing what to do and how to prioritize, these Indians. So in terms of the initial evacuation, that is the first part, getting out of the Ukrainian cities, arriving at the border, we didn't do very well with that. Then when they have crossed the border, we didn't have shelters. So our compatriots were depending on volunteers, NGOs. When I went to Romania, I noticed that Romanian volunteers, NGOs,
were the ones actually helping.
They were the ones help.
I'm asking this question also because you indicated on your Facebook page that some of the officials, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, gave out some numbers indicating where and how to reach them. You partly said that these officials were not responsive.
Yes.
And that's why I'm asking about your impression of the evacuation plan.
So I have said that as a country, we need an emergency response plan for our foreign service. When these emergencies occur, what is the plan? What should be the modus operandi? Even alert levels, at what point should our nationals start moving? Where do they converge? And how do our missions take it from there? Look, for example, I was disappointed that in Romania, there was only one official. I have commended him though, the consular officer, Ahmed Tijani Abubakar. I thought he did a great job. But one person for the whole of Romania, about 200 students crossing the border. The same person who should have been at the border to facilitate their crossing, same person who should have erected a camp to take care of them, one person who then must make hotel accommodation arrangements in the capital, Bucharest, for our nationals. That same one person should then be responsible for ticketing and how our nationals eventually board and come to Ghana. So clearly it was too much work for one person. Yes, we don't have a diplomatic resident mission in Romania. Our mission in the Czech Republic is responsible, has concurrent responsibility. So what you do, if there was an emergency plan, is to make sure that even if the mission in the Czech Republic is stretched, you can bring on board other European consular officials. Right. We have an embassy in Moscow. We have one in Oslo. Even in Switzerland, apart from Bern, we have the Geneva, right, mission. London, another European, Germany and others. Couldn't we have mopped up and then beefed up the numbers so that instead of having no presence at all at the borders to help with, the crossing.
So what do you think? You want the numbers to be scaled up?
So moving forward, I have said, and I've made these far-reaching recommendations, that one, we must have an emergency response policy as a country, because every now and then when we have to do evacuations, when there are emergencies, you see that there are lots of shortcomings. Yes, you don't know when emergencies will happen, but we must prepare for them. Other countries seem to have them. They have alert levels. They know, and their nationals have been educated as to when the alert levels are raised. You know then what to do and all of that. Even data, knowing who is where. I was surprised that our embassy in Bern, it was quite late in the day before they started collating numbers, wanting to know how many students do we have there, their contacts, where they stay, and all of that. I think that all of these things, if we have an emergency response plan, these things should be done much earlier, so that consular responsibility, which embassies have, we can do a better job.
But when in the interim, there's an emergency.
Then what do we do? Right. I have also said that it's clear that the advocacy, some of us have been leading in Parliament, that there's a need for a consular fund. The Foreign Ministry agrees. Indeed, the Auditor General in 2017 indicted the embassies abroad that a number of them had to misapply funds to take care of distressed Ghanaians because we don't have a consular fund. A consular fund which should be available to assist our compatriots who find themselves in one distress or the other. We don't have that. The Finance Ministry has not been forthcoming. So in this instant case, if it had not been Nukes Ukraine using their own resources to pay bus drivers to ferry themselves out of their cities, it will have been very difficult for our embassies, to pay for this emergency travels that had to take place. So we need that consular fund. This is one of the lessons that we must learn. But now, in terms of what has to be done as we come to, if you like, the end of the evacuations, it is clear to me that at this point we need to do a better job at counseling, at engaging us, and it comes back to what I saw in Romania, where only one consular official with so much responsibility. I didn't see, much to my disappointment, that when these students have finally crossed the borders and been brought to a holding place, their hotel, for example, the Hello Hotel in Romania, which was hosting our students. We didn't have, a team of medical practitioners, psychologists, counselors. If we had that, to put them in a good place and to even educate them about their options.
And that's why I wanted to find out if we should be scaling up the numbers. Obviously, that's of concern to you.
We need to. We need to. Because, you see, we've left these students largely on their own. And some of them, and these are 20-year-olds, people in their early 20s, very young adults who are compelled on the spur of the moment to take a life-changing decision. And I'm not surprised that you are seeing now quite a good number saying they prefer to stay in Europe. As I told them when I had lunch with them and had the opportunity to speak to them, I said that, look, that's such a risky thing to do. Don't go to another country where you are declared an illegal immigrant. If you are arrested and deported, you mar your record, and you may not be able to get a visa to even return to Europe to finish your program. If you have to return to Europe to finish your program. So it's better to take up the offer by the government of Ghana and return home. We don't seem to have a serious counseling session, not even one that you may even call on serious. No session, no counseling session, no guidance session. I mean, look, they've gone through a lot of trauma. You need psychologists to assist them. In this part of the world, we seem to think that once you don't see physical injuries, you know,
that's the end of the story.
Nobody's in coma. That's the end of the story. But what might be going on? You know, I mean, this. When I spoke to them, they say, look, they have nightmares. They get flashbacks. They are so traumatized, and they sometimes forget themselves. They forget where they are and what they are doing. So, and these are people who at the same time are taking decisions. Do I come to Ghana, or do I stay, or do I, you know?
So you feel that's accounting for the reasons why you feel that's accounting for the reason why some do not want to come back.
I think it is accounting for that. The kind of support services. So that's why I talk about this emergency response plan. If we put it together, we formulate it, it will help us. But now it's not even too late for our embassy officials. Look, there are a lot of Ghanaian professionals out there who are willing, psychologists, medical doctors, you know, career guidance experts, who are willing to assist these young people. You just have to engage them, speak to them, mobilize them, and let them go to these centers where Ghanaians are being held, so that they are given the best of advice. Look, only God knows where this conflict is going to take us.
And I was about coming to
we may as well have a third world war on our hands. This morning,
that's what you think?
Russia is saying that the United States of America has declared an economic war on them. They have put out a list of countries they say are unfriendly countries who have targeted them, you know, and their posture is clear that whoever is with Ukraine is against them. They have put their nukes on alert, so we know the dangers of nuclear war, you know, and they are not the only country with, you know, nuclear war, even though they seem to have the, you know, the biggest capacity, followed closely by the United States of America. And then you have all these NATO allies who are on alert. Look, we want a de-escalation. We all do not want to see third world war, but the conflict continues.
I'm glad that
many of us did not expect Putin to go this far.
And I'm glad that you're bringing the international dimensions. I just want to also bring to the fore the decision that the Republic of Ghana took when we voted at the UN Security Council. What do you make of the decision to side with the Western countries in condemning Russia? Some say we had the option of abstaining anyway.
I think that if you have studied our foreign policy for years, even though President Nkrumah, President Tito, President Nasser, and President Nehru of India took the non-aligned position during the Cold War, 50s, 60s, all the way to the 70s, and that has been our posture to make sure that we are not a pawn for any of these. And perhaps, I'm sure that researchers would soon, you know, argue that if President Volodymyr Zelensky had adopted Nkrumah's non-aligned posture,
this would not have happened.
Probably he would have averted what has happened in Ukraine. But having said that, even though we have always had that non-aligned posture, if you look at our foreign relations, you know, history, when it comes to taking a position in specific cases where we see blatant violation of international law, where, you know, we see human rights abuses, where we see that, you know, countries' sovereignty has been undermined and all of that. I mean, take, for example, you study our vote on the Israeli-Palestinian issue. Even though we are a non-aligned country, when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, we have voted on the side of the Palestinians. Because, you see, we also have a history of slavery, of colonialism. So we do not want a situation where other countries will go through what we have gone through and what we struggled to fight and to defeat.
So in short, you support it.
So I do not think that our position at the Security Council, you know, is one that is at variant with, it's very consistent with the positions that we have taken. Anytime we see that sovereignty has been violated, you know, international law, the actions that, you know, as it were, undermine the UN Charter.
And because we don't have much time, there are many dimensions to all of this. The economic angle is one of the issues that we should be on the lookout for. What's happening between Russia and US will obviously trickle down to developing countries like Ghana. Here we are, not in so much of a favorable economic position, and government says it needs funds in a very dire manner just to grow the economy. E-levy has been on the agenda today. We are hearing of what the Supreme Court has said. What was your reaction, your first reaction when you heard of the developments from the Supreme Court?
So before I come to that, I think that the immediate matter that must be of concern to all of us is these students we are evacuating, we are bringing out of harm's way. What happens to their education? Put yourself in their shoes. 6 years of investment, 5 years of investment, 4 years. And it's not easy to pay these fees. They are paying fees as international students. It's not less than $4,000 a year.
The Deputy Foreign Minister tells me that there's a plan in place to deal with that. He's on record to have said that on this platform.
Yes, it's just a plan. Look, what is preventing our country as we speak? The Bulgarians, these are not their nationals, but the Bulgarians have already met their universities. They've made an offer that they are willing to have our students transfer their credits to their universities. The Hungarians have made an offer. I have seen an ad from the Canadians. What is holding us back that our universities, our medical schools cannot make an offer? It's probably one of the reasons why we are even struggling to get these students to accept the evacuation offers and come here. I think that as a matter of urgency, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration should be meeting with the universities, both public and private universities, to offer a special dispensation for these students, particularly those who are in final year, 5th year, 4th year, so that they can have them, you know, transfer credits, graduate, because we need these doctors. Look at where we are with our doctor to civilian ratio. We need them, and that really bothers me. It gives me sleepless nights. You know? I think that we should pay attention to that very urgently. Now, on the matter to do with the Supreme Court decision today, you see, all of us should know, and when I say all of us, I mean all key actors in this dispensation. We are in uncharted waters. We've never been where we are in the history of our democracy. This is the first time we have a hung parliament. The first time we have a speaker who is not from the president's party. Posterity, researchers, the generations coming after us, they would definitely study all our actions, all the things we are doing. 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, will we be proud of our actions? When we were confronted with this hung parliament, these uncharted waters, when history beckoned, how did we conduct ourselves? Did we help to make matters better, to ease tensions, to rally the nation, to bring everybody together? Or we conducted ourselves driven by petty partisanship, narrow-mindedness, that led us into the ditch?
But you're a member of parliament.
That is what
you know the reactions coming through. That you, the MPs, are culpable in that regard.
That is what we should.
But you've heard that a lot of times.
I keep hearing that, and I'm only telling you what guides me. We are all part of this history making. I want to look back 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, and be proud of the decisions that I took. And I hope that all of us taking decisions, whether you are in the judiciary, whether you are in the executive, whether you are in the legislature, all of us, let's be mindful. Because when I see a constitutional provision, Article 102, which is so clear, Article 102.
On the quorum.
On quorum. And Article 102 says, a quorum of parliament, apart from the person presiding, shall be 1/3 of all the members of parliament. Apart from the person presiding, shall be 1/3. This is the supreme law of the land, right? The Constitution of Ghana. What this means is that that decision that was taken, presided by the Honorable Joe Osewusu, that the 2022 budget has been approved. They didn't have the quorum because he cannot add himself to quorum. This is so express. It's so clear. So I'm waiting, like every Ghanaian, for the judgment. We will read it and see how did they circumvent this. Or do we have a situation where the Supreme Court is now legislating, is now writing the Constitution? We all know that the Supreme Court interprets. It cannot create new laws. We are also now hearing that portions of our standing orders have been struck down as we wait for the judgment. The fundamental question, therefore, is that if you have to strike down portions of these standing orders to come to the conclusion that you have come to, should this decision take retrospective effect? Shouldn't you then say that, okay, so since these were the laws, these were the standing orders at the time you took the decision, that decision cannot therefore be a decision that you can consider constitutional or legal, but it cannot hold. So we are waiting for the judgment. Look, I have enormous respect for the institutions of this country, enormous respect for people on the bench. I am not one who will, as it were, question the integrity of anybody. All I am saying is that people will come and interrogate.
Posterity will judge. I guess that's the point.
They will assess all of us, how we are conducting ourselves.
But the minority in Parliament, you are a member of the minority as well. You are linking all of the happenings now to the controversial subject of the e-levy. Is this not far-fetched, particularly when we know that the Supreme Court is there to do its work? Why would you then link the judiciary to what's happening in Parliament? These are two separate matters, isn't it?
Look, all of what is happening, it's about the numbers not being adequate for those in power. Do you know that as we speak now, in reality, we, the NDC caucus, are the majority group? In reality, we are the majority group. Our colleagues who, on paper, claim to be the majority group because they have the independent members saying he will vote for them, they are in the minority. You don't have one of, and I wish the Honorable Kojo a speedy recovery. He's a good friend. I want him to come quickly to the House. But he's not available. We all can get sick. He's not available. The Honorable Ajosafo is not available. So you are shy of 2. You are 136, we are 137. All our members are intact. How long are you going to be playing the numbers game? And how long are you going to be trying to, undermine the Constitution, the laws, twist things,
but where's the evidence? But where's the evidence to back the twisting that you're claiming?
Mutilate and all of that.
Where's the evidence to back that? That's what you're failing to provide. But you're not providing that as minority.
Can't you see clear
what's the evidence to back that there is a compromise on the part of the judiciary just to push through a number of
words in my mouth?
But at least we know that that is what your leader says. Your leader says this is the judiciary supporting the executive's e-levy. He was categorical on that. We played that here.
Yes. Look, you cannot take the minority leader's right to prefer his opinion on matters.
He was speaking as your leader.
Yes.
You're a member of the minority.
Yes.
You distance from what he was saying?
Have I said that?
Well, but at least he's made the point on behalf of the minority. That we know is your leader. He's spoken. That there is a connection between what's happening in Parliament and the e-levy.
Look,
what's your evidence to back that?
Can't you see, my brother, that look, the path that President Akufo-Addo has adopted, look, if I was president, there's a hung parliament, there's a speaker who's not from my party, it's clear that Ghanaians have voted for power sharing. My approach will be different. I will not come with this same age-old winner takes all mentality. I will build consensus. I will try to have a win-win situation. We have been in government before. We know that raising revenue is important.
Right.
We have always had alternatives. We have said, cut down expenditure. You know the crusade have been how I have struggled to get the president to stop these chartered jets. It was only yesterday that he flew commercial.
You're hoping he will continue?
And I had to commend him. I'm hoping he continues. At least yesterday he saved us 3.3 million Ghana cedis. Look, if you put all of these chartered aircrafts together, from May up to this point, Ghana has lost 25 million cedis. By conservative estimates, 25 million Ghana cedis. Imagine what 25 million Ghana cedis can do. So if you have...
How do you even get the figures? How do you do the calculation? How do you do the breakdown to arrive at these figures? How do we know that this is not something you are cooking up in your office?
Why will I cook? Have they been able to challenge anything I put out? Why will I cook? Look, the aviation industry is such a transparent industry. I always have my way of contacting the people, the company, Global Jet Luxembourg, and I will ask them, I need a quote. When I see the president's travel itinerary, I know what to ask them. So I want to travel from Accra to Brussels, to London, to Hamburg, to Guyana, back to Accra. How much will you charge me? The people are doing business. They are happy that they have been contacted by some person who has the means.
You should have tried one to Romania at least.
You
should have tried one to Romania just to be sure.
And you get your quote.
Just to be sure.
And you know that recently I received information because I'm in touch with them. I received information that hey, you are one of those who have been showing interest in the LXDIO, our most luxurious, aircraft. It's no longer $14,000 an hour. You've seen all the global economic conditions. Fuel prices have skyrocketed through the roof. And it's now $18,000 an hour. So, I mean, can you imagine? $18,000 an hour. That's what it is now. So, look, I do my checks. I do my due diligence. Since I started this in May, not one expose has been contradicted or challenged. Not one. When the president used the ACJ 320 Neo, that was from a different company called Aviation Acropolis. I put out all those details. I contacted them. You look, parliamentary oversight is sometimes it's like the work of an underground journalist or an investigative journalist, an undercover journalist who must, as it were, find ways. Because you have an executive that refuses to be transparent, refuses to be accountable. I filed a question for the defense minister. He came and tried to obfuscate. The finance minister came and said, I don't have, as of me, I only release money to the presidency. I don't know what they do with it. He chickened out. But when we asked him a question on free SHS, that one, though he releases money to the Ministry of Education, he had all the details. How much is sent to which number of secondary schools, how many students benefit. Also, that one, he had it. But he didn't have answers on the presidential charters. So fine. I then asked the National Security Minister. After many, many weeks, he comes and tells us that it's a national security matter. As I sit here as a member of parliament in the Republic of Ghana, I know the cost of flying Air Force One. US congressmen, they know. They even check, that with the United States of America, there's a presidential travel policy.
So that's transparency.
When you fly Air Force One and use it for unofficial business, you are made to reimburse. This is the world's wealthiest country.
And the latest development we're getting on this is that some persons have tried the route of using the RTI. Will you support that move? And
Absolutely.
are you going to use that as well as a member of parliament?
Absolutely. They have contacted me. Indeed, the Honorable Manasseh Azuri has also tried that route. He hit a snag. They told him that it's a national security matter, and so they won't give him the answer.
So you're trying that as well?
So I have even considered, going to court and all of that. So it's not a matter that is ending. Remember,
you may go to court.
Yes.
You may go to court on the that's how serious you are about
Yes, very serious. Remember that my colleagues and I have also filed a private member's motion. We want to know what, first of all, warranted this reckless expenditure, this insensitive decision, and how much it has cost us in total. Because you see, I get the quote from the company, but the company always, If you become a very good friend, I'll show you some of the communication from the company. They always put there a disclaimer that this is not the total cost. This is what we will collect from you. But prepare to pay for example, parking. If you are going to land in Gatwick Airport,
you need to pay.
You pay Gatwick separate. Gatwick will charge you $12,000 just for parking. Then every hour, you pay Gatwick separate. Then there are other taxes that you pay. If you are going to keep the 7-member crew, the pilot and the crew, there are 2 pilots. Their hotel bills, their per diem. It's all separate.
But some of
when I hear people keep asking that, but Honorable Okujeto, you seem to know the figures. You are putting figures out. So why are you asking government? It's because of this. There are other incidentals. I'm only putting out the quote from the company if you charter the aircraft. But that is not all. There are other incidentals. And that is why we are interested in the full cost. Because, you see, every parliament, the constitution is clear. That is why when they come to parliament to seek approval for budgetary expenses for an ensuing year, they must first justify the amount of money we released to them for the previous year. How did they spend it? That is why we have always known the cost of presidential travel. 2019, we knew it was 69 million from January to September. Suddenly, we are told that presidential travel is a national security matter we cannot know as a parliament. Just because you have been exposed. They didn't expect us to just catch them pants down red-handed, engaging in such reckless profligacy.
Right. So if that fails, you'll be going to court as you're indicating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, posterity will not forgive us, particularly me as ranking member, that I was ranking member when for the first time in the history of this country, this is our 4th presidential jet,
right?
The Falcon. We've had a DH-125 under Nkrumah. We've had Fokker 28 from Achampong to Rawlins. Then Rawlins bought the Gulfstream GIII.
Right.
This is the first time that a president has a presidential jet and decides to go and do ultra-luxury charters. It's never happened. And as ranking member, you were quiet. You allowed this to go through. These millions of Ghana cedis was blown. You didn't make it an issue. I mean, when it is raised, when posterity asks me questions, how do you think I'll come across?
Well, so that's on the executive side, but in the House of Legislature as well, in Parliament, we know that you're pursuing a number of issues, even trying to check your colleague MPs as well. You're pushing through an attempt to have some issues checked in terms of absenteeism on the part of MPs. Top of the list is Sarah Ajasafo. Are you toning down on that anytime soon, knowing that there are new developments to the issue and some nuances may affect your ability to just move forward on the matter?
I don't really see any new development nuances. Look, the law is the law. Article 97, 1C is very, very clear that if a member absents himself beyond 15 days, the seat must be declared vacant. Fortunately, we have even the benefit of a judicial decision. Professor Kweku Azar went to the appeal court in 2008, and there's a clear decision. That provision of the Constitution stands. At least, fortunately, on that matter, we didn't have any rewriting of the Constitution. No clause has been struck down. It's very clear. Order 16.1 of our Constitution, 1 and 2, is still good law. So I am saying that all of this brouhaha, our colleagues on the other side wanting to descend heavily on one person, the Honorable Ajasafo, I am saying that, look, all of those who are falling foul of the law should be made to face the music. When we did the research, my research team and I, it was clear that there are 3 MPs, the Honorable Kennedy Japon, the Honorable Henry Kote, and the Honorable Ajasafo, who have violated Article 97(1)(c) and Order 16 of our standing orders. The Privileges Committee must have a fair and balanced, non-discriminatory view of this matter, and they should be made to face the music. Because you see, at the end of the day, these things, this absenteeism and all that, it doesn't tell well on us. You know, when there's the, bashing, the opprobrium, the dimming of the image of the institution. It affects all of us, including those who strive to be in attendance always. So I take the view, and it's not personal, it's not targeting anybody and all of that. I take the view that let us make sure that Article 97(1)(c) is implemented and implemented fairly across the board in a non-discriminatory manner. So I remain committed to that cause. And I do hope that as an institution, we will stand up and be counted, do what is right, what is in the best image of our democracy and our institution. And then ultimately, we should even have ways. And I'm glad that the current speaker is taking a serious view of this and has served notice that, because look, some of them will have gotten away with it if we didn't do the research. We should have a way as an institution to detect these matters and to make sure that we sanction those who are errant, who just come for the position and have no, if you like, interest in carrying out their mandate.
How far, and we need to go, but how far with the investigations on the claims of impersonation by someone who we are yet to identify, who claims to be Sarah Adjoasafo, who showed up on the floor of the House? You claim that you have some evidence leading to the fact that there was an imposter in the House. How far with that investigation?
I did say, to be more accurate, precision, that we will investigate. We have cause to initiate investigations into the matter because it's a serious matter. Not only us, a lot of Ghanaians, it was a trend in social media. People were like, no, that's not the Honorable Adjoasafo we know. As responsible members of Parliament, as particularly when the numbers are so critical, our image is at stake. And these are matters that even border on criminality. I said that we will investigate. We are not going to let it slide. Now, the investigations have been conducted. The decision is that leadership of our caucus will put out.
So that means you've concluded the investigation?
Yes, we have. And
Adjoasafo was impersonated?
The decision by our caucus is that the leadership of...
Why are you withholding that information? Because at least we know you're very much concerned about that. Why are you concealing that information? Was Sarah Adjoasafo impersonated?
My brother is finding a clever way of... We are not withholding or denying the good people of this country the outcome of the investigations. We have said that in politics, timing is important. The leadership of our caucus, led by the outstanding, indefatigable Honorable Haruna Idriso, at the most opportune and strategic time, will put out the outcome of the investigation.
But you're certain it wasn't Sarah Adjoasafo?
What I am certain about for this interview, which is my mandate, is to let you know that at the right time, our leadership will put out the outcome.
But you are very confident on what you were doing, how the process was going, and some pieces of information that was leading you somewhere. What is the conclusion of that?
Since you want to know about confidence levels, I am very, very confident that we would not hide this matter. We would not shelve it. We would not leave it as a matter that is one of those that is allowed to gather dust. I'm confident that very soon, sooner than later, the leadership of our caucus will put out the outcome of the investigations. I'm very confident.
Was that her sister as reported on social media?
I am extremely confident that very soon we will put out the details.
Samuel Okujetua Blackwell is ranking member on Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on The Pulse. When we return, we'll bring you some more stories. This is The Pulse on the JoyNews channel. Stay with us. As a careful assessment of the interim agreement reached with government, the National Executive Committee of UTAG has resolved to indefinitely suspend the 2-month-long strike, which has actually disrupted academic activities across public universities in Ghana. And what you have now is a statement coming through from UTAG on their decision to indefinitely suspend their strike. And they have indicated on point 1 that the National Executive Committee of UTAG held an emergency meeting on Tuesday, 8 March 2022 to, among others, consider the outcome of the referenda on its decision to temporarily suspend the industrial action commenced on the 10th of January. And you may recall that the NEC of UTAG voted to temporarily suspend the strike action on Monday, 21st February 2022, to pave way for negotiations with the employer to meet some of the demands and address the concerns. And we take you to the concluding parts of the statement, actually, the very last points that we have on the statement, which talks about their decision at point 8, indicating that after a careful assessment of the referenda results, interim agreements reached between UTAG and the employer and the various branch reports, the NEC of UTAG resolved to indefinitely suspend the strike action of 10th January 2022. And that's what they're confirming to us in the statement that we have coming through from the University Teachers Association of Ghana. But first of all, we need to get some more explanations to why UTAG is taking this decision. Joining us now via phone is President of the University Teachers Association of Ghana for UCC. That's Dr. Samuel Betts Boydi-Kusi. Hello, sir. Welcome to the show. Let's start off with the decision, the referenda that you talk about. What was the outcome? The outcome initially that we got was that majority of the members of the local chapters did not really support the decision by UTAG, the NEC, to suspend the strike. So how come you're able to convince them that let's put this on hold and see what government has to do? Dr. Betts-Kusi, if you're with us, I'm trying to find out from you. Well, we seem to have lost Dr. Betts Boydi-Kusi. We'll try and re-establish the lines with him, but just coming through, and just as you have on your screens now, is the statement from UTAG indicating and communicating their position on the indefinite suspension of their labor action. Point 8 of that statement is indicating clearly that they do not want to prolong the strike, and that they would have to indefinitely put it on hold to wait and see what it is that government intends to do. And UTAG will be giving us some more updates on this. We're re-establishing the lines with Dr. Samuel Betts Boydi-Kusi, who is the UCC chapter, the president of the UTAG there in UCC. As and when we have him, we'll bring you some more updates on this latest decision that's coming through from UTAG. Let's see if we have Dr. Samuel Betts Boydi-Kusi now. Still some terrible lines there, but what you also need to be mindful of is that there was pressure mounting from the likes of the National University, National Union of Ghana Students as well. NUGS was piling pressure, asking government to act on this matter. We also heard from the student front, many of them appealing to UTAG to not to prolong the strike and to at least find some middle grounds. And then negotiations commenced with the Ministry of Education and UTAG, as well as the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. That was after the court's ruling on the matter. Today, we understand that they were in court as well. Dr. Samuel Betts-Kusi will give us some breakdown to that. So, Doc, thanks for joining us here on The Pulse. We know that you've suspended your strike, but how were you able to convince your members who, in the majority, voted against the decision to suspend the strike?
Yeah, thank you very much, my brother. Yes, you are right. Majority of our campuses voted against the decision of the National Executive Committee to suspend the strike temporarily for negotiations to go on. But we think that largely the decision to vote against the decision of the National Executive Committee came out of the fact that our members did not trust that the employer will honor its part of the bargain. Be it as it may, you know, we suspended for 2 weeks and went into some level of discussions, negotiations at the table. Some interim arrangements were made just for the period of 2022. And so once that agreements were reached, we had to inform our members about where we had gotten to and the need for us to make some sacrifices, make some compromises, even though generally members are not happy with the kind of arrangements that have been put in place. Remember that we had this intervention from some eminent Ghanaians, including the Parliamentary Select Committee, and then other eminent Ghanaians, former President Kufuor, the Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, Sam Jonah, and others. And I mean, in all these discussions, there was that acknowledgement that we are not in too good times as a country so far as our economic situations are concerned. And so they appeal to us to make some level of sacrifice, make some compromises. And so that is the kind of message we conveyed to our members after the negotiations or after the discussions with the employer. And NEC is of the view that given that we have all these challenges and all these appeals coming in, we needed to agree to whatever interim arrangements we have made, with the view that going forward, the entire, especially coming from the Labour Conference, the entire market, the single spine salary structure will be reviewed to be able to, and then we'll expect that some level of job re-evaluation if it becomes necessary. All these things should be done to be able to properly place the lecturer well, so that what is due the lecturer could be paid going forward into the future. So it's as a result of all these things that we have had to decide that we will indefinitely suspend the strike action.
So what then are we to expect? That academic activities will resume in earnest tomorrow?
I think that already academic activities are already in session since we suspended the strike action and went into the negotiation. I think for the past 2 weeks, academic activities have been in full session. So basically it's a continuation. Remember, we are suspended. We are not called off entirely. So now that it's an indefinite suspension, we believe that we expect that the entire academic year will run its full course. And so work is ongoing on all the university campuses.
How much time do you have as an association? How much time do you have to wait for government as the assurance is that your concerns will be addressed?
Well, as I indicated, some interim measures have been put in place. And there are timelines to it which all of us have agreed to. And so we want to believe that out of our own magnanimity, out of listening to the police, we have more or less fulfilled our part of the bargain by acting in good faith. We want to believe that the employer side will also act in good faith by implementing all the things that we have discussed, so that we can run smoothly without having to resort to any of these industrial actions within the foreseeable near future.
Dr. Samuel Boyekuzi, I'm grateful that you've been able to join us. He is the UCC president of UTAG, giving us the latest on the decision to indefinitely suspend the strike declared by UTAG. This is the Pulse, and that's all we have for you in this package of the Pulse here on the JoyNews channel. My name is Blessed Sugan. Don't forget to be on the lookout for more stories on myjoyonline.com.